Today is a very exciting day because we've just picked up the permits to be able to start on our kitchen renovation. We've got everything back from the town hall, we're ready to go, and we cannot wait to get started. We're going to be ripping out this mix-match kitchen and putting in a brand new one right from scratch. But first, we need to get the space ready. We've got a really big demolition job planned. We're going to be taking down some of these internal walls, so we want to try and limit the amount of dust that makes it into the rest of the house whilst we're doing the work. So we're building a dust screen in the hallway to try and keep some of it out. Starting the kitchen soon, and one of the things that we need to do is empty out this space entirely so that we can take down this wall behind me. One of the things that I need to do is break down this sofa bed. It's an old one that was left by the people that were here before. We had intended to see if we could refurb it and keep it, but the more that we look at it, the more broken we realise it is. It's quite old, it's got woodworm damage, all of the kind of fabric and foam and everything would need to be replaced like from new. So it doesn't really seem like it's worthwhile keeping it in the end, unfortunately. It would have been nice to do it as an upcycle project, but I think in the end it's just going to be much more money than it's worth and probably not actually get used that much. So in the end, we're just going to break this down and organise to get that taken away. And yeah, just tidy out this space and get it ready for demolition day. Pieces apart, I'm thinking I might actually keep the base piece and turn that into a bench, maybe. It'd be quite easy just to add a back plate on and then make some cushions for it, potentially even to go up to the stone house on the land, maybe. And then this is the kind of bed frame piece, which folds out. It was old, clunky, actually was kind of all off center, so when you moved it, it actually made the frame rock. So I think we'll just get rid of this in the end. But yeah, I might actually keep that piece. So it's worthwhile doing these kinds of things and taking things apart, not only because it makes it a lot easier to get downstairs, but also because then you can see what's usable and what's not. I'm not sure how I get into that mechanism. Ideally, I'd like to take this down into two pieces because it'll be much easier to get rid of because it'll be lighter and more easily manoeuvrable, but I'm not actually sure how this all comes apart without properly taking apart the whole thing. Let's see. We've come up this evening to check on the garden and give everything a bit of a water, and the last couple of times that we've come up, things, particularly the beans, but also a couple of other things like the squash, are starting to look a little bit unhealthy, a little bit kind of pale and yellow. So we're going to give everything a bit of liquid feed with this water today, and hopefully that's going to revive everything a little bit and give it all a bit of a boost. We know it's not a water issue because every time that we've come up, even when it's a stretch of kind of 2, 3 days, 4 days without watering, the soil underneath the straw is still damp. So the beds are doing what they're designed to do, which is great, and hold in all of that water, and now it's just a nutrient issue. The peppers seem to be doing really well, but things, particularly these beans, they just look a little bit sorry for themselves. So I'm going to give them that food and hopefully that will boost them a little bit. The companion planting of tomato and basil seems to be going well. So the basil's looking nice and healthy, and we've even got tomatoes starting to come. So really happy to see that. And we've got our first flower on the aubergine as well. The sweet potato bed actually looks like it's doing quite well. We don't know what it'll be like for the tubers as they grow underneath, but at least the foliage is doing pretty well on top. The Italian peppers have also got a couple of little flowers come in, so it looks like things are doing pretty well. For our first attempt at a garden up here, I'm pretty happy with that. Even if all we get is 1 aubergine and 1 tomato this year, it'll be better than nothing. And we've had nothing from this land in the last few years since we bought it, so I'm pretty happy with that. The fig's doing really well this year, and it looks like we might be able to take a couple from the early harvest. Got loads and loads of figs coming for what will be the autumn harvest, kind of September, late summer, early autumn harvest. Loads and loads of figs coming for that one that will grow later in the year. But we have got 1 or 2 that look like they're ready to pick now. Earlier this year we started to propagate some mulberry cuttings that we took from a friend's tree. We used a method where you put them in sand to propagate them, and the theory is that they try to seek out nutrients and set root. Now it's time to see how well they've actually rooted and whether we can pot them on and grow them into nice healthy trees that we can plant on the land in winter.
So of all the mulberry cuttings that we planted, it was the metal bucket that did the best. I don't know if that's because it held water better or not, but I think we had 3 plastic buckets, and only that single stem has taken. We had some longer ones that were okay in pots, but they died eventually, and as I pulled them out, they're not rooted, so maybe they were just too big. So what we're going to do now is get these out of the sand and pot them up into compost to hopefully get some more root development and a healthier plant. So the reason we're doing it now is because some of these leaves are starting to look a little thin and yellow, and I suspect that's because there's no nutrients in the sand to help them grow. So we'll put them into compost and hopefully they can keep growing, and we'll get them in the ground next year. So you can see for all that leaf growth, Only tiny, tiny roots on there. So we're going to put them in here and hopefully they take a bit better. So we've got 6 mulberry cuttings now that are taken. We were hoping for a few more, but it's probably a sensible amount to be putting on the land next year, not to have too many trees to water. So yeah, fairly happy with that, and we'll see how they pot on. So this is the worm farm as it is today. We've had it going for about 6 weeks now. There seems to be a lot more worms in there, so I'll take you inside and we can have a look. So you can see they're starting to come out around the edges. That normally means there's something wrong. Beforehand, I believed it was because there wasn't enough food, and then they went back in for a few days. But as you can see, it's starting to get very wet. It shouldn't drip. It should just be on the point of dripping, but not quite dripping. So yeah, I'm going to transfer that to the new box. Filter out this worm castings, it's all right. Over this side, we've got a lot of food. I was trying to get them to migrate out of this side into this side, which is what I've seen people do. They tend to move them across in stages. And then I'm going to add another bin to the worm farm. So I'm going to drill around these lower edges here so water can drain out. And then that way, this will be the new worm box where the worm castings will be made. And then there'll be a box underneath that catches the worm juice. And then I can drain that off and use that on plants as I like. And then I'll filter out the worms that are already in the castings. So that should be enough drainage, just to let a bit of water out, as it's the lowest point inside the bucket, and therefore the worm castings and things shouldn't get too wet. So I got one of these old agricultural crates that I'm hoping will sift out most of the castings, but any bits of food or cardboard that's not properly broken down should stay in here, and I can just re-add it to the worm bin. Definitely wet. It's too wet. Okay, so maybe a change of plan. This is really, really wet to the point where it's not going to go through, it's just clumping together. So what I'm going to do is transfer everything to the one with holes in, and then come back in a few days, hopefully when we've discarded some of the water. As you can see, the worm castings look nice. It's just finding a way to get them without the worms coming through at the same time. You can see from the 200 worms we bought originally, there's so many more worms in here. So the actual worm castings themselves don't really smell, and generally the vegetables don't. And I had read if you put garlic and onions in, it makes it smell, and that's true. the more garlic and onion you put in your box, the more smelly the box is. So if it's something that bothers you, or if it's close to somewhere that's going to bother you, don't put those in. I'm quite happy to throw those in because we spend a bit of time down here, but not loads, and it's not that offensive. So as I'm now transitioning from a horizontal system to a vertical system, I've spread out the worm castings that we're basically ready to harvest. So I've spread that out now so it can drain properly, and then I'm going to then layer. I'll probably put some more tissue down now, and then the other stuff I'll layer on top of that, because then you'll build the layers upwards. And as this gets full, I'll drill another box with holes, put it on top, and that way the worms will move upwards through the system, and I can take out the worm castings in a box nice and easily.
We've got a materials delivery arriving tomorrow morning, so we've got to try and tidy up some of this and make some space for those pallets to come in. I've already got quite a few bricks here, I think there's about 50 or so. So I'm going to take these and put them straight upstairs. There's no point moving them twice, but this is like a prime place for us to be able to put stuff when it comes off the lorry that's arriving tomorrow. So better just get on with that. Well, since the little pallet jack was not able to get up the little step of the curb, although we do have a sloped path going up into the garage, that little step was proving problematic. So while Danny goes up to the mountain to get the delivery of the other materials for the land, we are now stuck with 3 pallets on the road. So I'm just going to try and move as much as I can by myself and see how much I can get done before Danny comes back. That's barely even a dent. Oh, left already. 300 kilos of sand and about 20 terracotta tiles. Brought in the windowsills as well, and we've got the concrete lintels. Now I've just got about, I don't know, 400 bricks to go. Who needs a gym when you're renovating a house?